welcome to another edition of Tech Talks to Go. I'm your host, Sean Donahue, and we have an extra special guest joining us all the way from the Citrix Santa Clara office. We have data scientist, none other than Michaela Morrissey. Welcome, Michaela. Woo!
Hi.
Welcome, Michaela. I really appreciate you being here today. And the topic that we're going to discuss is really top of mind for everybody across the industry, especially if you are a Citrix customer and or prospect. But before we get into that, your street cred is beyond comparison. You are a graduate of Auburn University with a degree in applied mathematics and actuarial science. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that, I love to say it alone. I was at the dinner table with the family last night. And I just kept saying applied mathematics and actuarial science. What on earth is applied mathematics and actuarial science?
So applied mathematics is, well, really the way that I like to think of it is applied mathematics is math that actually uses numbers. But really think of it as the application of math in different fields. So rather than just studying math for math itself, also studying how you can use math in other industries. And then the actuarial science part is really where my interest led in college, which is assessing risk for insurance and figuring out really how do you put a number to how much risk somebody is at for having some sort of loss, like maybe a car accident.
What would you describe, if I was a third grader on career day, how would you describe the job of a data scientist at Citrix?
A data scientist, first of all, really, when you kind of think about what they have to know, you're kind of this weird mash of somebody who knows a lot about math, somebody who knows a lot about statistics, and somebody who knows a lot about computer science. For a kid, I typically think of it as the idea of somebody who likes to solve word problems at the bottom of their math tests, where oftentimes you're given maybe some numbers, but also a story, and you have to figure out what mathematics or maybe what models you need to use to come up with some sort of solution.
Now that speaks to a keen interest of mine, predictive analytics and trying to really use data, and segues kind of into, well, not kind of, but directly segues into what the heck is Citrix Analytics Services, or CAS? Why do people care?
If you or your organization uses Citrix products, there's a lot of data that exists related to how people in the organization are using Citrix. So for example, with ShareFile, you would have information about every time somebody downloads a file, who they share with, what times they're logging in, and where they're logging in from. There's these mountains of data that we can collect. And from that, be able to start to notice patterns across the organization and with particular users. So when they deviate from those behaviors, we can start to notice when maybe something's amiss. Maybe somebody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing in the organization, posing some sort of security threat. Or maybe somebody's credentials have been lost. And some hacker on the other side of the world has taken them and is trying to get into the company with your login credentials. We want to be able to notice that.
In your mind, what's the top use case that people should or are when you talk to customers using CAS, Citrix Analytics Services, for?
I would say one of the things that I think is really powerful for people to use is just leverage the risk scores that we provide. So what we do is across all of these different models that we build, looking at things related to how people are logging in, where they're logging in from, what they're doing once they're logged on. We aggregate all of this information down into a risk score for each user across an organization. So I kind of just have a sample here from the UI just showing what'll happen. We just feed back to you very quickly. Hey, we've noticed a lot of weird behaviors going on with people. And we go and specifically drill down to what those behaviors were and surface those events. So for example, if somebody all of a sudden just was downloading a ton of files, we would let you know what were they downloading, when were they downloading it. And that risk score would point you to that behavior. As a lot of our models are still learning users' behaviors, or maybe a user changes behavior over time, we have to adapt. So one of the things that I even think about is just as I mentioned, a lot of behaviors that you have, but we have to handle this problem of people who just don't have any data at all, or people who change their behavior over time. Over time, our models will learn that. And with IA days coming soon, that's something we can necessarily talk about yet, but we'll have feedback loops in the product that we're going to be showing there, where you can actually provide us feedback to make your models better, faster.
Is it just warning the admin, or is there actual action that could happen if it's found that my device suddenly is being used to log in from the Greek Isles?
Yeah, we actually have actions that you can take. So if I recall correctly, in our policy, we have a set of policies. So if you see somebody log in from somewhere, you can take action through CAS. I think some of that action is even automatic. If you wanted to just set for automatically, if somebody generates this type of alert, do this, just automatically have this rule set. But we do have these policies where you can start to take action. That way you don't have to run around to all these other products trying to figure out maybe how do I cancel all these share links that somebody sent out just now, for you to actually be able to take those actions through CAS.
Can you describe a little bit about the techniques that Analytics Services is using? Because we say, all this data is available across your entire network. Does Citrix have agents on a box that are, keeping an eye on packets, or what's going on?
What Citrix does is there is, of course, mountains of information. Let's even take you for an example, Sean. So you interact with Citrix products all day, of course, as a Citrite. You log in often in the morning. You probably click on some apps, in Storefront. You maybe send out some links from ShareFile, maybe download some stuff from your manager. And we can see all of that, and we collect that behavior, and you're a creature of habit. Now, we could have somebody sitting there and just actually learning, this is Sean, and this is what Sean does, and watch you every single day. And the moment that you deviate from that behavior, start to wonder, is this some sort of security threat? Is Sean taking a vacation without telling us? Or something like that.
That has got to be the most boring job I've ever heard. Watching me.
It's boring, clearly, because you are a model employee. There would be nothing for them to see.
Right.
And also that it's not efficient. There's no way that you're actually going to employ a whole other set of people to go spy on your other employees.
Right.
So instead, what you do is you build models instead to track that behavior. We tell a computer, we show it, hey, this is what Sean does every day. We just feed all of that information to a machine, and it learns that behavior. It uses some sort of model that we have to specify to it to really understand your behavior. And as we see new behavior from you, it compares that to what it's already learned. So clearly, this is machine learning. We're teaching a machine. It's learning stuff about the environment that we've showed it. And from that, it is able to start to discern whether or not, you logging in at a certain time, or from our earlier example of somebody walking in through your door at 9:30 at night, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so that's how we do it, is really by collecting all of this data. And the more data you have, the more powerful machine learning you can use.
Are there any integrations with alliances partners that you could talk about?
Anyone else that we can leverage data from, not just Citrix product? Is that your question?
That is. Microsoft Graph is the answer.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, Microsoft Graph would be an option, I guess. Yeah. I think the team always, if you go ask any of the data scientists, we all have a wish list of data that we want. So beyond Citrix products, we are realistic, and we know that people use, tools throughout their day that are not always Citrix related, but that have mountains of data that, Citrix doesn't want to use for our own personal gain, but really to make sure that these models are even better for our end users to be able to use and really understand what's going on across their organization.
Now, Michaela, in wrapping up this episode, this is the part of the show that I like to kind of give it back to the guests and just kind of get off topic. And this is what I consider to be your TED Talk moment. So if you had the stage at a TEDx event in your area and you were talking to the next generation of data scientists, what's your TED Talk moment? What's your advice to that person?
So this field is rapidly changing. What was popular 5 years ago has likely fallen out of favor for something that, is new and emerging in data science. So I feel like to enter this field is one, to enter a promise that you're going to constantly be asking yourself, what do I not know? What can I learn today? What can I do to kind of just make myself the best data scientist in right now, 2018 terms, and making sure that, 2022, that I'm still quite aware of what the latest technologies are. So I don't think that this is a field for somebody who wants to go to college and never learn again. But I've been so encouraged by every time that I get an opportunity to speak to people who are studying data science now. You really see the area with even more people that I think are even more interested in learning than I am sometimes. But it's great. And I would really like to just encourage that behavior even more, because that's how the industry is going to get even better.
That's all the time we have today. Again, I want to thank our really extra special guest, data scientist Michaela Morrissey from the Citrix Analytics Services team, if we could say that, out in our California headquarters. Again, Tech Talks to Go. For all of your analytics needs, the jumping point for you, our listeners, citrix.com/analytics. Also, a wealth of information from bloggers such as Michaela on citrix.com/blogs. Search on machine learning or analytics or AI or any number of words, keywords that you can think of. But that does it for us today. Special thanks to our guest, Michaela Morrissey, data scientist with Citrix, working on Citrix Analytics. And tune in next time where we'll have another amazing guest talking about industry topics and technologies. That's it for us. Thanks, everybody. Bye.